This podcast was produced from a webinar. For a more interactive experience with visuals, visit advancedmanufacturing.org/webinars. Welcome to another SME Media webinar. I'm Carrie Gitter, Associate Editor. Today we'll be exploring the topic Automate Production and Material Tracking with Intelligent Nesting and ERP Integration. This presentation is sponsored by ECI Software Solutions, and we're joined by Tim Watkins, Vice President of New System Sales at ECI, and Hasara Sandul, Partner Manager and Sales Engineer at QBuild. Now, it's my pleasure to turn things over to our presenters. Welcome, Tim and Hasara. We're happy to have you join us today.
Thank you so much, Corey, for that great introduction. Excited to talk to the audience that we have here today and those that are going to be watching this recording. So my name is Tim Watkins. I'm the Vice President of Integrated Solutions there at ECI, working with engagements and customers to help drive a better overall customer experience. Been with ECI for 7.5 years. Have been in manufacturing for a couple of decades now, working on both sides of that fence. So excited to kind of share some of the things that I see in the industry, where I feel the industry is going, and the excellent work that our partners at QBuild have done. So Hasara, would you like to take a moment and introduce yourself as well?
Thanks, Tim. My name is Hasara Sandul. I'm one of the sales engineers here at QBuild Software. I'm also a partner manager here at QBuild Software, managing the partnership between QBuild and ECI. I have been in manufacturing before as well, previously in a previous life in automotive manufacturing. So I'm very familiar with all of the manufacturing processes and challenges that companies such as yourself face, and look forward to providing some education here and seeing how we can help benefit you as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Hasara. So just to go over the agenda at a high level, we're going to be talking a little bit about nesting. You know, what is nesting? Why should companies do nesting, and some of the industry challenges that those manufacturers are facing? Why a nesting integration is important, and some of the challenges that organizations run into when they aren't integrated with the nesting software and an integration into a larger ERP, something like ECI that could offer you guys. Finally, we're going to be talking about the solution to that problem, our Nestlink solution, and showing a demo of that, talking about a little bit of the benefits and value propositions that something like Nestlink can provide you guys, and then answering any questions that come up. So a little bit about why nesting, and some of the things that I always like to talk about is when it comes to nesting, certain types of organizations, especially a sheet metal, some tubular nesting, but primarily sheet metal construction, structural manufacturing. A lot of those industries, in my experience, really lean into that nesting software type need. Where you're dealing with different types of parts in a similar type of material. Could be a 1/4-inch steel sheet. So how do I arrange those parts? How do I minimize my waste? How do I optimize the valuable dollars that I'm spending on my material to make sure that it is used in a most efficient manner? How am I automating some of these decisions rather than having a manual process and an engineer going through that painstaking process of organizing and orienting everything in a time-staking manner? A lot of the companies that investing or in taking that step into nesting or looking into it are looking at savings, are looking at improved efficiencies, material utilization to minimize their scrap, minimize their waste. But I think two areas, or another area that I think a lot of people don't understand, is really the reduced labor cost. Nesting software specifically can really be another employee. It is acting as a massive time saver to help you understand and get those benefits of your costs, of your efficiencies, of your reduced scrap, rather than putting the onus on your employee or employees to do that. You're putting that information onto a software. Now, what happens when you're using that nesting software? What happens to that data? How can you make it actionable and moving forward? That's really where an ERP and a nesting integration, such as Nestlink, can really help you drive a ton more value for your organization. So often when companies are having those silos of information, those silos of a specific software, you're really just manually entering information from one spreadsheet or one software to another. that takes time. There's errors, there's delay in accuracy of information. And how can you gather learnings from it? What can you take from that? Are you able to find the needles in the haystack? Are you able to understand the agenda and everything that's going on as you go from job to job to job to job? Are you looking at the big picture? Are you just looking at an isolated individual job? Being able to gather that information in one place like an ERP allows you to do that. I mentioned a little bit about that data entry. Usually it's redundant. Usually it's delayed. Usually it's inaccurate. So how are you able to get actionable, accurate, and timely information so you can make proactive decisions rather than reactive fire drills? Those loss of efficiencies, those loss of time, really the loss of that information, the loss of that time that you're spending with those machines of an employee or those machines running something and they're not using it right. They're using that time right. They're not maximizing their efficiency. You can't get that back. There's only so many hours in a day, in a week, in a month, in a year for you to leverage. So nesting and nesting integration allows you to maximize that. And the final thing I'll talk about here is really that record of truth. So often organizations want to understand what happened on a particular job or jobs, what happened on a particular product line or maybe a work center, maybe with a customer. Who carries that burden of truth? Who has that accurate information to be able to go to and gather? How are you bringing all of that together? Is that in an Excel spreadsheet somewhere? Is that in a QuickBooks or a smaller software? Is that just in the nesting software that not everybody in the organization has access to? So how can I get all of that information into a record of truth that allows you to make actionable and accurate and timely decisions? So how do we bridge this gap? Our partners at QBuild have a lot of ways to be able to bridge that gap of information that is isolated or siloed in a spot or a location or software, and bringing it into the hub of the organization. And that's what that ERP is. So to talk a little bit about what Nestlink and some of these integrations can do, I pass it over to Asara.
Thanks, Tim. So as Tim mentioned, ERP is really the pivotal and core aspect or system of your business, but there are other systems that you use either in shop floor, engineering, wherever that may be. Those systems are also vital to your business. But with that disconnect between the central system, the ERP, and those other solutions, you can face challenges. And that's where we, QBuild, really come in. We focus on integrating engineering and production software and systems into your central ERP, the core of your business. And we've been helping manufacturers with integrations such as these for over 2 decades now. You can see some of our solutions on screen here in this kind of web map that I have. And all of these solutions that you see really focus on automating your engineering and your production processes by bridging that gap between those departments and those systems and the ERP system as well. So if you are interested in learning about our other solutions that are shown on screen here, like CADlink, for example, which is our CAD to ERP integration solution, or ECX Manager, our centralized engineering change management solution, feel free to reach out to our team or the SME media team, and we can definitely provide more information. But today, as we've been mentioning, we'll be focusing on the nesting integration aspect of it at Nestlink and why nesting integration with ERP is important. So let's start by understanding why is nesting integration so important to begin with. We've been talking about it a little bit here, but what's the importance of it? So on screen here, you can see I have 2 diagrams. I have 2 different systems and areas of the business. I have the shop floor, which is where my production team and nesting operators all really live and breathe. And on the other hand, I have my business operators, such as front office, production planners, procurement teams, etc. Those are 2 separate areas of my business, but they're both pivotal parts of my company and my day-to-day operations. The nesting operators and production are responsible for key parts of production, which is setting up those nests, fulfilling customers' orders, cutting those parts, and maintaining their own inventory in their nesting software library as well. And on the other side, the business operators who are interacting primarily with the ERP, they're also responsible for a key part of your operations as well, where they need to think about things like procurement and procuring the right materials on time, securing orders from customers, planning production, seeing if we have stock and inventory for these different jobs. So you can see the two different sides of the business here, or the company. And with the lack of integration between these two pivotal departments for the business, it can cause disconnects. And these disconnects between these departments can cause different downsides or challenges within your company. Firstly, people will have a harder time getting the most up-to-date information, such as customer orders, inventory updates if we use certain stock and sheets, job progress and status updates on these jobs. And all of this disconnect and having a harder time getting this information means inefficiencies and delays in production. And front office, such as production not knowing about new inventory sheets coming in, when they were received, or front office not knowing about how much material we actually cut and used, and how long that actually took for these jobs. So there's no real efficient way to pass information between these two systems, as we can see it right now, without that integration in place. And additionally, this lack of integration really means more work in the form of manual data entry for both your shop floor and the business operators as well, so the people interacting with the ERP. The nesting operators have to manually go in and set up the jobs and the work orders and update their nesting software inventory. Whereas on the other hand, front office, they have to manually update their nesting, the ERP jobs as well. And this means that there's less time in both their days to focus on actual production work, like cutting parts and securing more orders and satisfying your customers. So overall, a less productive and less efficient shop floor and company as well. And especially in today's rapidly changing world, this means you're almost guaranteed to fall behind the competition as well. So I want to tell a little bit of a story here to help describe some of these challenges that customers come to us with, that customers who are maybe have some nesting processes in place, but they don't have that nesting integration in place. So challenge number one here, I have Ned the Nester. He's one of my nesting operators, and we just won a huge company order. Hooray, right? So we get more money, more revenue, more work for us, which is great for the company. But for Ned, it's not so great here because he is starting to dread all of the time and effort he's going to have to put into the manual work he has to do. Because he'll have to set up hundreds of new parts and sort through hundreds of pages of information to set up these new parts in his nesting software and create those nesting software work orders or jobs as well. And all of this will be done by hand by Ned. So this can take a lot of time, especially when you have a really large order. And those of you who have done manual data entry and have to set up work orders and jobs and update inventory, how much time that can take and how tedious it can be. So Ned, no lunch break for Ned again here. He has to set up all of this information. So you can see how creating all of these parts and work orders in the nesting software can really be a challenge for your nesting operators, as it takes a lot of time, it's tedious, and it's manual work that really no one wants to be doing. And especially if you're a custom manufacturer, where no two jobs are the same or no two parts are the same, this challenge will be even more noticeable and emphasized. Now, on the other side, we have Anna the analyst. I know it shows a image of her, but we have Anna the analyst, and she manages the ERP inventory and jobs. So since they just received a huge order, it's vital for her to know what her true job costs are for this big order. She wants to know how much profit they're making, what's the revenue generated from it, so they can help replicate that huge order further down the line and get more revenue for their company as well. But she wants to know how much material was actually used, the scrap that was generated, so she can update her ERP inventory accurately, and how much time was spent on, to cut these parts. But unfortunately, this information is not available to her. It's something that's she needs to talk to Ned to get that information, because it's information that's coming from the nesting software and from actually completing those cuts. And since there's no real connection between the ERP and Ned's nesting software, Anna doesn't really have a great way of getting this information into her ERP. Because Ned, as we know, he's not having a lunch break. He's busy creating all of these parts. So Anna definitely feels like she can't bother him or even track him down. So you can start to see on the other end of things, the business operators such as Anna, their struggles as well in, with the lack of a nesting integration in place. And lastly, Anna and Ned also share a common challenge as well, which is keeping both of their systems inventory up to date and in sync with the other systems. So as some of you or most of you may know, nesting softwares have their own inventory that you need to maintain, and so do ERPs. Nesting softwares will have the sheet materials that they're using, the parts that they're going to cut. The ERP will have a bit more than that, where they're going to have other materials and inventory that's not related to nesting as well. This means that Ned needs to keep his nesting software up to date, but unfortunately he doesn't know when he's receiving new sheets, for example, that he can use for laser cutting or tabletop cutting. His ERP and Anna knows that information, but he does not, and so he'll have to take even more time from his busy day to get all that information up to date on a regular basis, because this is something he'll have to continuously do as you get more and more sheets in inventory. And Anna, on the other hand, she knows when they receive new stock sheet, but she doesn't really know the sheet usage after the cuts are complete, especially for any offcuts or remnants or scrap that's generated that could be used for future jobs as well. She doesn't have a good way of tracking this in her ERP system, so she has to rely on Ned's tribal knowledge, really, which is not ideal and can cause downstream confusion in production. So because of these disconnected systems, it's difficult in Ned and Anna, as we can see, to keep them in sync. And you can start to really see the challenges we have with the lack of a nesting integration. Life becomes a lot harder, work becomes a lot more tedious, and unnecessarily less efficient as well. So with all that being said, what happens when we introduce nesting integration into these processes? Why is it so important for manufacturers? Well, there's quite a few benefits you're going to you'll immediately see. Firstly, you'll see a huge or significant improvement in your production efficiency. With having a nesting integration, your nesting software work order or job, and the part and inventory updating and creation will all be handled for you by the nesting integration solution. So automating a large portion of the nesting process that you have in production. This means no more manual data entry for your nesting operators and also your front office as well. They can use that time instead to focus on actual production work, like cutting parts, and in fact, increasing your production throughput and overall efficiency. And automation such as nesting integration and eliminating this manual data entry is really a must for companies that are looking to scale, because scaling manual data entry is not feasible, and it's not economical in terms of generating revenue and profit. And another benefit you're going to see by automating these processes is the elimination of human risk and having more accurate data in both systems, in the nesting software and also the ERP. Again, because we're eliminating that risk of human error, and we're automating having the software do this all for us, so we can prevent situations where we're ordering wrong quantities of materials, preventing wrong build or wrong cut situations as well, and overall just preventing late shipments and unsatisfied customers or dissatisfied customers. Another benefit you'll see is the eradication of your data silos, meaning more connection and better integration between not only your systems, but overall in the company and between your departments as well, such as shop floor and the front office. This means no more chasing people down to get updates on jobs and inventory, because all teams will get live updates on their job statuses, material usage, part usage, and completion as well, job completion as well, which can all be used to plan and schedule resources more efficiently and effectively. And lastly, with these real-time updates that everyone in the company will be getting, or the teams will be getting, you'll also have the opportunity to know what your true job costs are. You don't have to rely on rough estimates anymore, thinking or eyeing the sheet saying, okay, maybe I use about half of the sheet, so we're going to put that in. We can know the exact amount of sheet being used since it's coming directly from the nesting software. And especially for front office, this is really important because they'll know how much material was used, how much time it took, and they can make, overall the company can make smarter decisions to drive profitability based on a single source of truth. So at this point, you may be thinking Nest integration sounds great, and you can see the benefits, but you don't know where to start and how to even achieve it. That's where we come in, ECI and QBuild, with the solution NestLink. So NestLink does exactly as we described earlier. It's a bidirectional bridge between your ERP and nesting software. So it's going to integrate the two systems and sit in the background, continuously scanning these systems for any inventory, parts, or jobs that need to be synced and updated without any human intervention. This means reaping the benefits of nesting integration that we previously discussed. So no more manual data entry, no more data silos, and real accurate material and labor usage in your ERP to make those smart decisions. You can also see some of the nesting partners that we integrate here on this slide as well. And we work closely with these partners to develop NestLink to function with these nesting softwares. This is just a few of them. We have a lot more partners listed on our website. So if you are interested in seeing a full list of our nesting partners, feel free to go to our website. And I'm sure now you're curious to see what NestLink looks like in action. So I prepared a live demonstration today so I can show you and walk you through how this nesting integration solution really works. So I'm going to share my screen here. And with this, you're going to see us jump out from the presentation and into my screen. So just bear with me for a second as I get this pulled up. All right. So I have my nesting software open here. And I want to first start off this demo with a quick high-level overview into NestLink. So on a high level, NestLink, as I mentioned, is going to continuously scan both my nesting software system and my ERP. And from the ERP side, it's going to be looking through and scanning through all my active jobs that I have currently open. And it's going to be looking for jobs that have some sort of nesting or tabletop cutting or laser cutting operation related to it. And if it does find something that satisfies that criteria, it will take that information based on my ERP job and automatically create the nesting software job or work order based on those job requirements. Additionally, I'll also be looking in my ERP for any newly received sheet material and stock that I received. And if I did receive any new sheet material, it's going to automatically synchronize that into my nesting software library as well. On the other side, it's also going to be looking at my nesting software. So once my nesting operators and shop floor have actually completed the nest and completed the cuts, NestLink will be able to automatically pick up on that and update my ERP job based on the actual material usage and the labor usage that I have for that job. So before I jump into the demo here, there's a few things I want to preface this demo with. NestLink demonstration overall is a little bit odd as there's no real user interface, which you'll see here momentarily. It's, as I mentioned, it's really meant to be sitting in the background, communicating with these two systems, the ERP and the nesting software, and creating this transactions in the background as well. So the interface is not very complex, it's not very pretty, and it's really not really meant to be looked at. So let me just pull up the NestLink interface here, and this is what the NestLink interface looks like. So as you can see, it's not the prettiest interface there, and it's really meant to be used for testing purposes and to initiate nestling, to start it and turn it on. So when I hit this trigger start button here on the top right and turn nestling on, that's going to trigger nestling to start looking at both my ERP system and also my nesting software for those jobs and completed jobs and sheets that I was mentioning. After that, after I turn nestling on here, I really won't be having to come back in here to press start again. Nestlink will loop every few minutes or so to check both the ERP system and the nesting software. So once I hit start, I don't need to touch it again. I can leave it on and leave it running in the background, and I can see those transactions being created. So this demo will consist of me spending some time in the ERP, and I'll be using M1 today for the ERP system, describing what I have in terms of the job and sheet that I received, show you Nestling taking that and automatically creating that in my nesting software as a job or work order, and then actually completing the cut or simulating a cut, and then showing you how it's going to update my ERP job as well based on that completed cut. So let's first start off by going through what I have in my ERP here in my M1 environment. So as you can see here, I have a job set up in M1 in my ERP, and this job I've it's ready for production. As you can see here, it's released to the shop floor, and it hasn't been completed yet, and there's a production due date of today actually. So what we're creating here, we're creating this battery enclosure, and this battery enclosure is created out of two sections of the enclosure. So it's section A, so this should be section A here. Section A, and then also section B of the enclosure. And you can see for both sections of this enclosure, they're both parts that I need to laser cut or created out of sheet metal. So I have some work associated with each of these parts, and you can see that it's created out of this cold roll steel here as well. And I need to, first of all, laser cut this cold roll steel, deburr it, and then paint it in order to create both the section A and section B of this assembly. And you can see here my cold roll steel is related to my laser cutting operation. This is important because this is how Nestlink is able to filter for these jobs. So it's looking for, as I mentioned, jobs that have a nesting operation associated with it. So in our case, this laser operation here. Otherwise, it's going, we don't want it to bring in work orders or jobs that aren't related to nesting into our nesting software. So that's the job I have set up here. And let's quickly take a look at my receipt as well. So here you can see I have a receipt, and maybe front office has created this receipt. You can see it's been posted, and I've received some of that cold roll steel that I need to use for that job as well. So if I scroll over here, you can see the part ID that I received and the quantity I received, which is a quantity of 5 here. And Nestlink is also able to filter for the appropriate material as well based on the part information. So it's only pushing over material such as sheets that really your nesting software library would be using. So not pushing over things like brackets or other material that wouldn't be able to be used for nesting. So that's what I have in my ERP right now. Let's take a look at my nesting software. So today I'm going to be using SigmaNest for my nesting software, but again, regardless of the ERP and the nesting software that I'm using here, the functionality that I'm showing will remain the same. So firstly, you can see in my sheet list, in my sheet library, in my nesting software, if I scroll through, I don't have any of that cold roll steel, the CRS, of that 0.074 inch thickness. So I have other thicknesses here, like 0.036, 0.048, or 0.089, but none of that 0.074 inch thickness that we just received. So that does not exist in my nesting software library yet. And when we run Nestlink, you're going to see Nestlink automatically add that in for me without me having to manually enter any of that information. On the other side, you can also see my work orders. So these are the nesting software jobs, essentially, where I'm able to know what part we need to cut, what the due date is, what material we're using, quantities, etc. And here you can see it's sorted by the due date. And if I scroll down to today's date, you can see we don't have any work orders set up yet for that job that we had in ERP. And that job ID in the ERP was 9005. And you can see we don't have any 9005 work order in our nesting software library yet. So when I run nesting, you're also going to see nesting automatically create that work order in my nesting software based on what I had set up in my ERP. So let's go ahead and run nesting here, so you can see it actually create these in the system. So as I mentioned, typically you'd just be running nesting and leaving it in the background. But for today's demonstration purposes, I'm going to be targeting those specific jobs and receipts because I don't want it to be scanning my entire M1 environment. So let's start off with that newly received stock or sheet that we've just received. So I'm going to process that, and you're going to see Nestlink. It's doing some work on the bottom here, and it's generated a transaction into our nesting software. So if we go back into our nesting software here, and if I go into my sheet list again, you can see now I have that 0.074 inch thickness added to my nesting software library within a matter of seconds. So I didn't have to go in and manually enter any of this, go talk to front office and get that information. It's all done for me right in the background without me even knowing. So I have this, you can see the information. It's also brought over from my ERP system. It's brought over the material, the part ID, the thickness, the dimensions, so the X and Y dimensions of the sheet. And you can also see I've received those that same quantity of 5 that I had in my ERP system as well. Now let's do the same with the job. So run Nestlink on the job as well. So the job ID for that job was 9005, and we can just double check that. So yep, 9005 there. And let's run Nestlink against that job as well. And you can see Nestlink is creating transactions, and it did some work there. It's created 2 transactions, one for each part, for the section A and the section B. So let's go back into my nesting software and take a look at my updated work order list as well. So here now, when I scroll down to the bottom, you can see I now have those 2 jobs added to my nesting software, or that job added to my nesting software as work orders. You can see it's brought over that due date that I had in my ERP system, the job ID, along with the assembly and related operation IDs as well. It's brought over the quantity that the customers ordered, which was a quantity of 10, and some of the other data as well that was available in my ERP system. So again, I didn't have to go in and check my ERP to manually enter this information by having 2 screens open. It was all done for me automatically in the background. So now I'm going to simulate a nesting process, or a cut, let's say, of this part. So at this point, everything I'm going to be doing in this nesting software is not related to Nestlink. This is just simulating that we're cutting the part. Excuse me. So I'm going to set up the work orders that I added in here. You can see those 2 work orders there. And if I click on one thing I did forget to mention is Nestlink also does bring over the part geometry as well. So, systems like the ERP doesn't typically house the part geometry, but for systems like nesting softwares and SigmaNest, it is very vital and important to have that part geometry in place so you know how to nest it, what the part looks like, etc. And Nestlink has also brought over that part geometry for me as well. So you can see the part geometry on the right here for the section A and for the section B of the 2 parts there. So I'm going to add this to my list of things we need to cut, and you can see the sheet that we just brought in which is the cold roll steel, 0.074 inch thickness. And we're going to use that. And now I'm just going to auto nest this. You can see it's nested the parts onto the sheet. And let's go ahead and simulate a cut here. And it simulates the cut, as you can see, and we're going to just post the job, so update the job. Okay. Key thing to note here is the program name, which is 556. And you can see as we've simulated the cut, we now have a cutting time from our nesting software as well. So let's go ahead and close that. I'll close this. And if I go back here and go into my program update, we can now see the parts that we just cut. So we can see the cold roll steel that we used, the 0.074 inch thickness, the 556 program name, and we can see some information for each of the cuts here. So for the section A and section B, how much of each part we cut. So we cut a quantity of 10 for each, which is what we need. We can see what the part geometry is like as well, and also the total cutting time as well for both of these parts. And we're also able to see how much of the sheet we used as well, outputted by the nesting software. So I'm going to go ahead and just update this program. All right, there we go. So it's updated the program, and just to make sure we can take a look at the history so we can see the completed nesting cut here. Again, the program name was 556, and we can see the program here in our updated list of program history. So here you can see the cutting time and how much material we used as well. So Nestlink at this point, it would be able to automatically pick up on the fact that this cut has been completed or a cut has been completed. And it's going to take this information, such as the actual cutting time and the actual material usage, and update my M1 job with that information. So me as the nesting operator, I don't need to go over to production or the front office to let them know about this. This is again something that is going to be done in the background by Nestlink. So let's go ahead and run Nestlink here again on this specific job. And before I do that, actually, I do want to show you or point your attention to some of the things on this job. So firstly, we can see on the job for the laser cutting operation, we don't have any hours indicated yet for either of the laser cutting operations here. So no hours added yet. And we can see our quantity usage right now is set to a quantity of one sheet for each part. So when we run Nestlink, we're going to see Nestlink update this quantity usage here and also update the hour usage as well. And with the quantity usage, we're going to see Nestlink actually update the allocated quantity specifically as well in our inventory. So if we go to this cold roll steel sheet here that we're using for this material, we can go down and see the quantity we have on hand here, and we can also see we don't have any quantity allocated to any jobs yet for this sheet yet. And if we go into the magnifying glass, we can just see that there's no quantity allocated. So when we run Nestlink, we're going to see it update the quantity, material usage, the cutting time, and also update the quantity allocated here to how much quantity we've allocated to this job. So I'm going to run Nestlink on that specific job again. And I need to put the instance number. And you can see it's now updating the material and the cutting time as well in M1 or in my ERP system. And if we go back into M1 here, let's refresh the job. And we're going to see it's updated the production here, and we can see our operations have also been updated. So the cloud highlighting changed from black to blue, indicating it's now been completed. We can also see it's updated the cutting time, our actual cutting time here as well, from 0 to 0.15 hours. We can see a similar story for the section B. So it's also updated this cutting time, which is a quarter of an hour, 15 minutes. And we can also see it's updated the material usage here as well. So updated the actual material usage from 1 to 0.44, which is how much of that sheet we actually used. It's also backflushed this material, meaning that's allocated this material to this job as well, so I don't need to do that myself. And we can take a look at that if we go into our material and inventory information for this part, or cold roll steel. And if I go into my quantity allocations now, you're going to see I have now 0.44 allocated to this 9005 job. So that was all done for me directly by Nestlink. I didn't have to manually enter any of this data. If I didn't have this nesting integration solution like Nestlink in place, I would have to actually go in and manually enter all of this data in. And when you have thousands and thousands of jobs in a month, or lots of unique parts that you're cutting, you can start to see how this process can become really tedious and really challenging in terms of keeping accurate data and keeping up with the processes and updating departments when they need to be updated. So that is the end of the demonstration here. Let's jump back into the presentation and go through some of the last few slides here. So firstly, I hope that live demonstration gave you some insight into how Nestlink would fit into your process and what it looks like in real time, and how it could benefit your process as well. So, with what I've shown, let's summarize some of the benefits that we saw and you can expect to see with Nestlink as well. So number one, the biggest benefit you're going to see is reduction in costs and also increase in production and company efficiency. As you're eliminating, all the manual data entry work, as we saw in the live demonstration, I didn't have to manually enter any data, and it's giving my team time back in their day so they can focus on actual production work like cutting parts and revenue generating work like securing orders and satisfying customers' needs. Secondly, you're going to see a huge or significant improvement in your data accuracy as you're eliminating the risk of human error and having a software and solution take care of that data entry for you. You're also connecting the systems and departments to eliminate those data silos that we were talking about earlier, and in effect, improving your on-time shipments and overall a smoother production process. And lastly, you're going to see increases in accuracy of tracking material consumption, labor consumption in your ERP as well. So giving you that insight into your true job costs, so you can make better decisions, smarter decisions based on a single source of truth to drive profitability and increase those interdepartmental communications. So let's put some numbers to the value proposition of Nestlink. It's great that I can tell you about the benefits and we saw the benefits, but in terms of actual numbers on a paper, what does that look like? So here I have a scenario. Let's say I'm at my job shop. I have 2 laser cutters or water jet cutters or any sort of tabletop cutters, and I have run about 8 hours per day of cutting, which is, I think, a bit conservative because I know some job shops do run all day or 24/7 sometimes. And I have about 325 new jobs per week that require some sort of laser cutting or nesting related operation. So with all this in consideration, I'm spending without a nesting integration in place, I'm spending over 600 hours per year on manual data entry alone. So this is just the manual data entry aspect of it. This doesn't account for some of the other challenges that we described with the lack of an nesting integration. But 600 hours on manual data entry alone is almost over a month in a year on manual data entry alone, which is a crazy amount of time if you think about it for a company to be spending on menial tasks like manual data entries, which especially in today's world can be easily automated. So you can start to see how much the lack of a nesting integration is really taking away from your team, even though on a day-to-day basis you may not see it as much. And with the introduction of Nestlink and nesting integration solution, you'll be spending virtually 0 time on manual data entry throughout the year. As we saw in the live demonstration, I didn't spend any time on manual data entry because all those processes were handled directly by Nestlink. And this means that I'm I'm getting a 7-month return on my investment by eliminating all of that manual data entry and ensuring accurate data and job costing as well. So this ROI also mainly emphasizes on the elimination of manual data entry. It doesn't account for some of the other benefits you'll see, such as getting those true job costs, insights into your true job costs, so you can make smart decisions to drive profitability. That interconnectedness between your departments and overall efficiency increase as well in production. So you can really start to see the value of Nestlink here and how it can give you tangible results on your investment. So with that being said, I'll hand it back to Carrie for some Q&A as well.
Great, thank you for such an insightful presentation. It looks like we did receive some questions from our audience, so a quick reminder to our attendees to get your questions in while we still have our experts here on hand. So let's take a look at this first question, just getting into the nuts and bolts a little bit of Nestlink. How does Nestlink choose which jobs to send to the nesting software?
You might be muted, Hasara.
Oh, I think you're muted, Hasara.
Can you hear me?
It was a really good answer, I promise.
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So I was saying that Nestlink, you were right that Nestlink is scanning all of the active jobs that we have that are ready for production in our ERP system, but it's only going to be processing the jobs that have some sort of nesting operation related to it. So as I showed in the live demonstration, in my example, I had a laser cutting operation associated with it. So if I had some sort of operation like that and a job material associated with that operation, Nestlink knows that it should be processing that job.
Got it. Thank you. And how does Nestlink then know when a job is finished?
So on the other hand of things, it's going to be continuously scanning both systems. So I mentioned in the live demonstration that every few minutes, it's checking both the ERP system and also your nesting software for any transactions it needs to process. So really what that means, every few minutes is going to be looking through all of your active ERP jobs. And then also in the nesting software, it's going to be looking at all of the completed jobs that you have there as well. And that's how it's going to be able to pick up on those.
Great. Thank you. And from the user end, how does a user know when Nestlink has processed something? How are they notified of that?
Good question. Since Nestlink is really meant to be sitting in the background, you would see these completed transactions in the respective systems themselves. So as I showed in M1 or my ERP system, I saw the job being updated. And in my nesting software, I saw those sheets being added and the work orders being created. So that's really one way I can tell. The other way I can tell is by going into the Nestlink interface and looking at that transaction history as well. So I can see what exactly it's processed as well. So I don't need to kind of guess that.
Got it. Thank you. And one final question here before we wrap up. Can Nestlink also help manage remnants?
Yes, that is a good question because Nestlink can help track remnants. So what I think the person means by remnants is offcuts or any scrap that's generated that could be used for future nesting related jobs. Most of the time companies without the use of an ERP or nesting integration solution, they're going to be using tribal knowledge to track those remnants. But with the introduction of Nestlink and the nesting integration and ERP system, you can actually digitize those remnants and help track those remnants as well. So what Nestlink will do, it will detect if any scrap has been generated or any offcuts have been generated from that completed cut. If there has been, it's going to actually add that part to your ERP inventory, so you have it digitized and you have it there for everyone to be able to see, and it's not really tribal knowledge anymore. It's now on your system, and anyone can really go in there and see, like, okay, I have this remnant here and I can use it for this job, etc.
Great, thanks. Yeah, that's a really robust set of capabilities. So thank you for sharing that. And looks like we're almost at time here. So I do want to thank Tim from ECI and Hasara from QBuild once again for joining us today. I also want to thank our attendees for your participation. We hope you found the content valuable and will join us again for another SME Media webinar. Until then, remember that SME and SME Media are here to help you stay up to date on all things manufacturing. You can find links to our podcasts and webinars, our publications, and our news by visiting us at advancedmanufacturing.org. Thank you and have a great rest of your day.